Phenomena is a 1985 Italian Giallo slasher film directed by Dario Argento, of course, and stars Jennifer Connelly, Donald Pleasence, Daria Nicolodi, Dalila Di Lazzaro, and Patrick Bauchau. The plot follows a young girl at a Swiss boarding school using her newfound insect psychic powers to try and track down a local serial killer. I realize that description may not have made a ton of sense, but it's Argento, and we all know that it doesn't really have to. So I've been on a pretty slow journey, but, it's a journey nonetheless, to catch up on all the Italian, classic horror stuff that I still haven't seen. And when I say horror, I pretty much include the Giallos too, just because of all their, there's a lot of crossover between the two, kind of genres, especially with Phenomena, which I'd call a Giallo with supernatural horror elements and also slasher elements. And from all of the Italian stuff I've seen so far, this one stands out to me as pretty unique, at least in its genre, for a few reasons. First, it has two American actors, which I know wasn't at all really uncommon back then, but it wasn't something you would always see, or at least that I've seen so far in the these classic Italian movies. We've got a young Jennifer Connelly, and this is actually her first lead performance, so that's kind of cool. A little bit of history in the making right there. And honestly, I thought she was great. It wasn't a surprise, that people saw something in her and, kind of decided to give her a push, up into the mainstream. And Argento seemed to really know how to utilize her properly. Her being still, somewhat inexperienced, making up for lack of that experience. And in my opinion, it almost seems like he knew that she was going to be a star. I think that's fair to say. And obviously he was right. She did rise to the top. So we also have Donald Pleasence as a Scottish entomologist. But it's hard for me just not to see him as Loomis, even though his John McGregor character is very different. He's not at all like Loomis. Like here, he's kind of like a soft-spoken, kind scientist that lives in a giant mansion for some reason. He's got a chimpanzee named Inga, played by Tenga, who was in a number of European movies back in the day. And McGregor's also wheelchair-bound. He's a cool character, and I was pretty happy to see him here. I mean, I love Donald Pleasence. I think we all do. So the beginning is pretty great. This is a great way to set up this film. We got the first murder scene. It's gruesome and total Giallo-style slasher kill, black glove and all that. Real early on to set the pace for, what was to come. And then after that, you fast forward, I think it's like 6 months after that event, and Jennifer Connelly's character, named Jennifer, also for some reason, I always thought it was weird when they do that in movies, when they give an actor their own name, or even their real life name as their character name, but whatever. So she shows up to the Swiss boarding school, and by this point, several girls, from the school have been murdered in a pretty short amount of time. So she befriends McGregor and Inga, of course, and it's actually it's a pretty cute on-screen, friendship between the three of them. And of course, since he's an entomologist, he comes to the natural conclusion that Jennifer has some kind of power over insects. And she decides to try and use these powers to maybe track down this killer of the girls at her school. It's a weird concept that only barely works, when you think about it, but it does give the movie some really fun supernatural vibes, making it, I would say, a bit unique for a Giallo. I mean, from the Giallos I've seen, they don't usually go in supernatural directions, but again, I haven't seen really that many when you think about it. So it actually kind of reminds me of Friday the 13th a little bit, with Tina and her telekinesis. But this is a much better film than that, of course. The supernatural elements didn't always make sense, but again, they don't have to. And they also weren't really needed, but kind of cool. And like I said, really shakes things up for the Giallo genre. As a murder mystery, the red herring thing was done pretty effectively, I would say. And even if parts of the middle of the film didn't, keep me as interested as like the beginning and the end, first and third act. It's Argento after all, so I was never really bored. You don't get like a huge body count here or anything, but all of the kills were gruesome, so every single one of them very much counts. I don't think there were any like off-screen kills or anything like that. So that's the way you do it, in my opinion. The last 10 or 15 minutes, I'd say, were great. I think my favorite parts of the movie, and absolutely, but just bonkers as Jennifer gets closer to solving the mystery. And I couldn't help but wish that we got more of that stuff, where it just gets chaotic and just kind of crazy. But it was a fun watch, man. The soundtrack just kicks total ass, especially Flash of the Blade by Iron Maiden, and Claudio Simonetti of Goblin has some really cool tracks. There's a oddly placed Motorhead song, and I'm not saying that Motorhead shouldn't have been in the movie, but it was the placement of their song. It just didn't really make a lot of sense. But again, who cares? Doesn't have to. So I'm giving Phenomena a 7 out of 10, and I would recommend it to any fans of giallos, Italian horror, and supernatural horror. I imagine, though, if just because this is Argento, if you're a fan of Italian stuff, you've definitely seen this. I actually had not seen it. Well, that's not true. So funny thing is, I'd never really seen this version, the Phenomena, Italian version. I had previously seen Creepers, which is and don't see Creepers. It's Phenomena, but butchered to hell for the American audience. For some reason, there's I think it's missing 15 minutes or something like that. Don't watch that. I can't remember why I even bothered. I think I watched it when I didn't know any better. I didn't know that it was the same movie as Phenomena. Whatever. Just skip it if you can. Don't watch it. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex. Subscribe right now, please.